right, welcome back, everybody, to We Are the Game. We're going to be reviewing the Cards Lions game. I'm going to turn it over to Luke since this is his team, his passion, and get his kind of feedback first, and then I'll throw in a couple notes of my own. What was your kind of take on the game? You watched more of this game, obviously. What all happened there? I think both of us had picked the Cards in this one. What? How did we go wrong? What ended up happening?
The Cardinals started out gangbusters. First drive just marched down the field. I think the Lions did too. So our opening game sequence was great. Then after that, we obviously scored 6 points for the entire rest of the game. So it was something was just stalled. The run game never really got going. I think part of that was because we ended up down 2 scores for most of the second half. They really weren't looking to the run much. But even when they had, it really hadn't been thriving. I mean, James Conner with just under 2 per carry is not exactly doing great. But you got to give a guy like that a chance to get going. He rips off a couple of 10-yarders, and that looks a lot better. But Detroit's quite good against the run. I think they said last year they were top 5 against the run, so that's something they really thrive at. It comes down more to our offense. I'm actually pretty proud of our defense. We had allowed 20 points at half, which is rough, but then they allowed nothing the rest of the game. So I think our defense was awesome. They would let them kind of move the ball a little bit, but then eventually they just stymie him. But our offense just felt a little off. Like there were a couple of key drops here and there. Kyler just seemed slightly off target. Just something was out of sync. I don't know if that's bad week of practice, if that's just every once in a while you're going to have an off day. I'm really not entirely sure. It was unfortunate because it was a very winnable game. Detroit is honestly still not firing on all cylinders. I pity the team that they start firing on all cylinders on, kind of hoping it's this coming week, but they're playing Seattle. But regardless, we definitely left a win out there. But good news, aside from continuing to cycle depth at right tackle, I don't think we had too many major injuries. Trevor Bryant's coming off, he's in concussion protocol. He and Brian Bryant's the safety for Detroit, had a nasty collision. I think they're both in concussion protocol this week, but hoping long term that they're both okay. Other than that, there really weren't a bunch of injuries that I can recall. So that's good at least. Staying healthy through the year is going to do wondrous things for the Cardinals in particular. Well, every team, but Cardinals are the ones I really care about. Fine. But yeah, so that's kind of what I saw. Run game couldn't get going. Pass game was just a little off. Kyler really wasn't bad. It just wasn't quite where it needed to be. When you were watching this game, did something in particular stand out for you?
Well, for me, it's all the things that you already pointed out that didn't happen. I think last week we spent so much time praising the balance of this offense and how effective that makes it. And it just struck me that, yes, you're down and you need to catch up, and I appreciate all of those things, but I feel like maybe this week was a little bit of a test of how the team does when they become one-dimensional or when you try to play them one-dimensionally. And that was not great. And like you pointed out, Detroit is a good team. They're a good team. They're also well-rounded. And it almost seemed to me like the Detroit stayed committed to the run. The run was effective early. They used it to control the clock, I think, in the second half. I think it's that abandoning of the run for the Cardinals that I find something that I like running teams. It's probably not something I would have done. The other kind of question, I guess, going into that, well, maybe a note first and then a question is the real true emergence, I feel like, of Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson in that game, though, of being like, these are the go-to guys. And Kyler's really not shying away from them like we were concerned about in that first game where it was like, wait, why is he not going to this guy who's obviously supposed to be the number one wide receiver? it seemed to me like the offense from a passing perspective was a little bit more what we expected it to be. Hey, here's our true number one, number two. Greg Dortch somewhere in there as a three. Trey McBride probably wasn't as much of the offensive side as we had expected, but even with all of that put in place, do you think that the kind of getting away from the balance of the run really affected the offense and prevented them from performing the way that you would expect? Or do you just think that the defensive side, this was their day and they were just too good?
Uh, I guess in a way, a little bit of both. I certainly don't want to discredit Detroit's defense. They were in the
Sure,
NFC
sure.
Championship last year, so it's they're certainly good.
Yeah,
But it's like a Bill Belichick thing, right? It was like, I'm going to take away this one thing and force you to do the other thing, and so once you know they're going to do the other thing, they get kind of predictable. So it did kind of turn into that. If it was just we're down by 2 scores, we got to catch up. I don't actually think that's a valid excuse because it was for the entire second half.
yeah,
Like guys, you got 2 quarters to score 10 points, right? It's you don't have to drop the run at 15 minutes left in the third quarter. So I'm hoping that's not really what it was, and that they just had looks, and that's what the game plan said, was throw the ball a bit more. But
yeah,
yeah, it was not. Yeah, So some missed opportunities there as well.
sure,
A
sure.
4th and 1 where we came up an inch short, kind of a thing. It's just a
Yeah,
few chances come up heads, and we're back in this game. I don't really want to come out like I'm uber disappointed. Again, this was an
oh,
NFC
sure.
Championship team that
Yep.
we were again kind of like the Bills game. We were one throw away from going to overtime with them. So it's it's really not that disappointing. It's a missed opportunity. So yeah,
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of silver lining there, and I think that while we were talking about the positive of Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson, their development and like how they're being used in the offense, who they are right now and who I think they'll be at the end of the season, like the maturity and the experience that they're going to get. I mean, it would have been an interesting game to have seen at the end of the season. You know, that whole Marvin getting 11 targets, pulling in five, makes me wonder. You know, at the end of the season, if you throw him those same 11 passes, if some of those aren't coming down his hands just because of better route running or more adjustment to defenders, those kind of things. Um, like you said with the defense, I was actually pretty impressed that they held up the way they did, especially since the run was pretty effective. David Montgomery looked pretty good. Um, I think the one play that stood out to me was a hit by Kaiser White. He just looks so good to me right now. The couple of games, like he's kind of that guy that I don't know. He excites me. I love Buda Baker. Who doesn't? But he's kind of like an exciting, I'm up and coming, maybe the wrong word, but just kind of guy to note on that defense that hit was beautiful. So anyway, that's what I had on that game. It was, like you said, it's not that it's not disappointing because I wanted my pick to win, but I want the Cards to win. But they've played a hard schedule these first three games overall, and like you said, they're in those games. So and they are young at wide receiver in particular. So it'll be interesting to see how that translate going into next week.
yeah, for sure. Next week's looking a bit more graspable if we're playing against Washington. Still at home. I know that Washington just had their kind of coming out party against Cincinnati, but
Mhm.
I still see Washington as a more winnable game. But we'll get more into that one here in a couple of days, or at some point. And yeah, other than that, like again, I'm glad nobody really got that hurt. Waiting for updates on Trey McBride as he goes through protocol because we would definitely benefit from having him. They love to run that 13 personnel. So, but yeah, we'll see. Good win for Detroit. Keeps them in the out of panic mode. So,
Oh yeah,
yeah, looking forward to next
yeah,
week.
yeah. Me too.